Hello and welcome to this very special episode of Agenda. Today we're going to be asking questions about what is really a freedom that has been given to us to ask questions and seek information from the government. It is what you know as the right to information. The questions that we're really asking are that whether the right to information has been choked, has it been arrested, is the government really making it tougher now to actually get information from its ministries and whoever else that we question, we the people of India. So just to give you a sense first of what we're talking about and why is it that we are asking these questions, we have some graphics that will really tell the tale. Firstly, Jitendra Singh said this in Rajya Sabha, so this is information from him. This is really indicating a rise in the RTI applications that have been rejected from 2013-14 to 2015-16. In 2013-14, 60,127 applications were rejected. There was an increase of about 3,500 the next year. And then from last year, that is 2014-2015, there was an increase, a further increase of more than 1,000 rejections. So that clearly indicates that more and more RTI applications are being rejected. But there's also another question. Why are these RTIs being rejected? And this information we have got from the Central Information Commission, so it is very credible. In 2016, what they tell us is that 40% of the approximate 10 lakh RTI applications were rejected. 4 out of every 10 of the RTIs, the pleas, were rejected on mysterious category of others. So the explanation given for the rejection was a category of others simply. Also, public authorities, the government in a sense, rejected 6.62% of the applications received. And that was slightly lesser, to make it very simple, than what had happened the year before that, which was 8.39% of the applications that were rejected. Now, I want to introduce our panelists who are out here. We also have a lovely audience right here. And on my left is a man who is obviously going to be answering a lot of the questions that are posed to him, representing the BJP. He is Vivek Garg. He's the national convener appropriately for the BJP RTI cell. Thank you, sir, for joining us. On my right is Subhash Chandra Agrawal ji. He's an RTI activist. He really needs no introduction. He's been doing this for a really long time. And also joining us from Jaipur is Nikhil De. He's been on the news of late because as a founding member of the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, but also an RTI activist, he has found himself being sentenced to 4 months in jail by a court in Rajasthan just recently after being convicted of trespass and hurt in a 20-year-old case. So a lot of people have actually looked at this as a scuttling of a person who's basically trying to find information. And also in Lucknow, Wajahat Habibullah joins us. He's a former Chief Information Commissioner. He also needs no introduction. Thank you all for joining us. My first question is to Subhash Chandra ji. And sir, what is your perspective as an RTI activist? A number of them have told us that the process has been difficult. It has become tougher. जैसे अगर मैं जाऊँ RTI application के साथ और 10 प्रश्न हैं उसमें, तो मुझे वो 10 प्रश्नों में से सिर्फ 4 का जवाब मिलता है. कभी मिनिस्ट्री के पास, मिनिस्ट्री कहती है कि दूसरी मिनिस्ट्री के पास ये क्वेश्चंस आंसर होंगे, या फिर कहते हैं कि रिजेक्ट ही हो जाती है एप्लीकेशन. ऐसा आपको क्या लगता है इसके बारे में?
No, I don't think this is the perception. You just told in your introductory remarks that number of RTI petitions rejected is 2,500 was increased in some particular year, and then 1,000 in another year.
Yes.
But you should also realize that number of RTI applications filed has also increased.
Totally.
You have to see according to percentage of rejection.
Yeah.
And secondly, it is also the drafting of RTI petitions. I have observed that not all the RTI petitions are drafted properly.
No, but
therefore, rejection will be higher.
Okay.
But I agree that with some public authorities like Reserve Bank of India, the declining rate is certainly higher and on not proper grounds.
Nikhil De with us. Nikhil, there are simply 2 forms. One is that the ministry passes the buck to the other ministry saying this is not our concern, these are not questions we can answer. The other is that if you ask 10 questions in the application, you get satisfactory answers for only about 5. And that might be a number that some may challenge also. What is your view on this?
So I think we need to understand that the presumption has to be wholly in favor of RTI. 10 years down the line, we've had a law for 10 years. Yes, one could understand that in the first 10 years, it was a new framework and system. We were trying to overcome the Official Secrets Act. But now we have to move towards a completely open government. So our expectations are much higher. It's not that we compare with the last year and say, oh, they're only so much, this percentage. We have to try and look at how is government functioning. Section 4 of the RTI Act, which should say that government should proactively disclose all information possible, is actually completely ignored by most of the departments of government. People we hear from all over, and Mr. Agarwal is a very exalted RTI activist who gets very good treatment everywhere. So do I, and even we've seen what's happened. But in many places around the country, the ordinary person is sent on a run around trying to get information. Information in a democracy is absolutely essential to be given. So our standards must be much higher. We must place much greater emphasis on getting it and not partial giving of information. And rejections is completely out of the question.
Okay.
People should sit in offices, should sit with the applicant and work out how best that information can be given, given proactively.
Okay, Vivek ji, you're here representing the BJP. I want to ask you, how is it that an explanation can be given that the ground for rejection in a lot of the cases, like I mentioned earlier, is others? That's really flimsy. You know, there's got to be another reason given for rejection. And like Nikhil is saying, वैसे तो there should be no reason to reject an application.
The thing is that, as Subhash said, it is very important to know how the RTI application has been drafted. The drafting is an art, basically. I feel there has to be, I feel there has to be a training of RTI for the people, for the citizen. Like Skill India program is going on. It depends on the, I don't know which kind of RTI was filed, which was replied in terms of.
There are so many. I have spoken to 3 RTI activists, and all of them have told me specifically that we file, and we are people who file so many RTI applications, and we've been doing it for so long, so we know the process, we know how to draft an RTI application, yet our applications are rejected or we don't get satisfactory answers.
No, I have seen RTI application of many the regular people who file regularly, but I have seen the drafting, I must tell you, the very poor, or sometimes they ask that kind of questions which have either no relevance, or you can say the questions are so lengthy. The question has to be very brief, specific, to the point, and the information which the public information officer.
But the spirit of the matter is simply that you release the information. How can you say that just because the question is long, we won't give information?
No, question is not.
I mean, that's just one thought that you said.
If the question is clear, like I file RTI, I'm not saying that everywhere it is being rejected or everywhere it is being properly replied. I give you the example. Like in Delhi government, in Kejriwal government, I almost file 40-50 applications every month.
Yeah.
And majority of them, they are not being answered properly by the Kejriwal. I give you the background of RTI Act. RTI Act is basically, originally it was Freedom of Information Act 2002, which was passed by the Vajpayee government.
Yeah.
And so the Congress came and they just changed the name of the act and they implemented in the name of RTI Act.
Okay.
So the intention of India government, I must tell you, is very clear that the information should be given to the citizens.
Okay. Also with us in Lucknow is Mr. Wajahat Habibullah. As somebody who's been a part of the establishment, a part of the system, how do you look at all of this, and where do you see it heading right now?
Well, you see, the question that you're raising, that the exercise of the RTI Act and the benefits are being restricted and things, I would not agree with that. The fact is, of course, I would not agree that there was a Freedom of Information Act 2002, but it's not that the name was simply changed and then a new act was brought in. The new act was worked on considerably and was an improvement on the 2002 Act, and the person who will tell you that is Mr. Arun Jaitley, who was in fact the architect of the 2002 Act. But having said that, the trouble is that so far as government is concerned, even the government that brought that act then ended up in many ways resisting the expansion of that act. The act is, as was mentioned by our BJP guest, the fact is that it is a very powerful act, and it is something that helps to set the tone for transparency in society. And we do know the present ruling party, it's in its election manifesto, transparency and accountability, which are the key to the RTI Act, were one of the parts of the election manifesto. Now, let us set that aside. The Prime Minister, the Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi himself, in the annual convention of the right to information, which is held every year in 2015, he was the chief guest. He said that the RTI Act entitles the asker, the seeker, the common man for information that he seeks. It must go further. It must answer questions. And he said the RTI Act must be designed, the government must function in a manner in which it answers questions. So all these
That's
things,
the intention, sir, but on the ground it may not be happening.
That should have come from that. Exactly. The leap forward that we expected in consequence of that, and when in fact the Prime Minister went on to say that he was wanting to set up committees in different ministries to monitor the kinds of information that were being sought by the public, which would feed back to the government the kind of information that the public wanted, which would also help government to hone its policies for the benefit of the people. These things have not happened, and as Nikhil has just said, Section 4 is the key. That requires information to be disclosed, a vast quantity of information to be disclosed, so that you don't have to even ask for an RTI application. You can go onto a website or look into the manuscripts and the publications and find your answers. That has not happened. It did not happen in the last government. It is not happening in the present government.
Okay. Now that's an interesting point, not blaming one government and really putting the blame on both governments. But one person who really summed up the matter recently was Arun Shourie. He really needs no introduction, economist, politician, author, also somebody who's got the Padma Bhushan. So he is somebody who you would look at with a lot of credibility. And what he's really said is about the RTI is what we've been trying to say. And just to give you a sense in the best words possibly that Arun Shourie has displayed, this is him talking on our show, Reality Check, a few days back.
You know, one of the
and he must very carefully watch what is happening to the free flow of information.
Right.
I don't know how many of your viewers will know how the RTI is being choked. One is in a systematic way. It was one of the great rights that the people of India won. This right to information.
Yeah.
And it is slowly and slowly being choked. One of the papers that is doing the best work in this regard, the Indian Express in the North, I learned that now in almost every application which they file is first rejected. And it is only at the appeal stage, which takes many months, that you eventually get what should be not just the right, but it should be the custom of the of everyone to get to know those facts.
But you know, one of the things.
So I think both, you have the power, you are not exercising it, and you are not recognizing the importance of a free flow of information.
Right. So the second question now we are asking is, as Arun Shourie sums up the matter that we were talking about, which was related to what the government was allegedly doing in terms of making it slightly more difficult to get information through RTI. The second question is about how it seems like criminals and hooligans are basically creating a realm of fear for anyone seeking information. And just to give you some numbers, recently the attacks on RTI activists, if I could talk about that, in May 2014, Sanjay Tyagi was shot dead. In 2015, in June, Sandeep Kothari was burned to death. All of these are RTI activists. In 2016, in October, Bhupendra Veera was shot in his head. Jitendra Bhatt was also shot in the same month, but he did survive. So Haas Haldankar was killed with concrete blocks by people in April 2017. But that's not all. The death toll of RTI activists, if we could talk about that, 56 RTI activists have been killed since RTI came into play. 311 reports of harassment of citizens, 51 murders and 5 suicides reported in total of RTI activists. Maharashtra really tops the list with 10 murders. So that's not all. Now there's a proposal by the government. And the question is, does that proposal pose a greater threat to all those seeking information through RTI? What is that proposal? Well, that proposal basically talks about how there will be a withdrawal of applications if somebody who's put in an RTI dies before he gets a reply for the government. Now, that, according to activists, is going to create a lot of problems. One, that it's going to increase the risk for applicants. And if the states will follow the centre's rule, then lives of RTI applicants will be at risk.